Hey, welcome back everyone. In our previous session, we have discussed the Hadoop ecosystem on premises, the challenges we face there, and how Google Cloud Dataproc help us to overcome these limitations. Besides that, we also discussed a few key features of Dataproc, that is no infrastructure to manage, faster cluster creation, and then I have a pen here. Yeah, faster cluster creation and easy integration with GCP services like BigQuery, PubSub, and so on, and the cost efficiency concept of immutable workers. So we have not discussed this in detail yet, and this concept, the separation of storage and compute in detail yet. Today we are moving to an important concept of the primitible and non-primitible workers in Dataproc. So that's the agenda of today's session, guys. Let's move forward. So let's have a quick recap of what exactly a cluster is. We already learned in our previous session that cluster is a group of machines. It could be VMs, node that work together to perform a common task. These run distributed processing frameworks like Spark, Hadoop, and so on. And the Dataproc is nothing but a managed cluster on GCP. Whatever the cluster we have seen as a generic cluster in our previous sessions, the Dataproc manages the same cluster, but it's a managed cluster on GCP. The same stuff we are lifting and shifting on the GCP service with Dataproc, which give you extra features with more flexibility, and that we are going to study in detail in our coming session. So now let's apply the same concept inside the Dataproc. We know that a cluster, usually Dataproc cluster is same, like it's just a group of virtual machines that work together to perform the task, especially kind of distributed loads or distributed system. And these will use to run big data jobs like Spark, Hadoop, Big Hive, and so on. Make sense? Like the same way, we have the master node in Dataproc cluster. And the most distinguishing stuff here is the primary and the secondary workers. It means that what makes Dataproc unique compared to the Hadoop ecosystem on premises, in our regular or on-premise Hadoop ecosystem, we just have one master node and its worker nodes, but we don't have the concept of the primary workers or the secondary workers. This gives an extra feature for our job to make the stuff very easy. That's the reason Dataproc has come up with these two kind of workers. So let's see at a very high level what primary workers and what secondary workers are at this point of time. So definitely in our coming sessions, when we move on to the hands-on and when we got in depth in Dataproc, we will be covering it more in detail. At this point of time, you just get a high level picture of just a high level understanding on the primary workers and secondary workers. So the primary workers are the main machines, right? Suppose you have the project, okay, and you need some employees to work on. So these primary workers are the permanent employees in the project. See, workers, nodes, VMs, machines, all are same. Workers just easy to remember. That's the reason I use the word primary worker. These are the machines which are a permanent employees in the project, means these workers are available permanently in your project until your job ends or you deliberately make it off. So in the other hand, we have secondary workers. Even these perform the same stuff. These run programs, run your Spark or Hadoop task or jobs, but they do not store the temporary HDFS data. But in case of primary, these store the temporary HDFS data. This is very important. At this point of time, no need to think about what is HDFS data or the temporary HDFS data. We will be looking it into maybe just in a couple of sessions, right? So what you want to understand is primary workers are such machines which are a kind of permanent employees in the project. Secondary are kind of temporary or contract to hire kind of employees in your project. If you understand at this point, that's more than enough. Make sense? Let's see the next thing. What are non-primitible workers and primitable workers? Conceptually, primary workers are non-primitable workers and secondary workers are primitable workers. Just understand at that high level. There could be some here and there, some thin line of difference will be there, but at this point of time, just think that primary workers are permanent employees in a project, secondary workers are temporary employees in the project, and primary workers store the temporary HDFS data, whereas secondary workers do not. About this HDFS data, don't think too much right now. We are going to have a deep discussion on that. Make sense? Perfect. Now let's understand a bit depth on the non-primitable workers. Non-primitable workers are kind of regular and permanent machines. These are permanent machines. Here employees means machine, just a real world analogy. These are normal and permanent PMs or machines. They never get stopped by Google. Straightforward. They store HDFS data. Like I said, don't think too much on HDFS data right now. Just remember that they store HDFS data. And these are used for like very critical tasks or stable process. That's all about primitable work. Now comes a very important aspect. Those are primitable workers. The above one is non-primitable. I think I made a mistake there. The above one is non-primitable workers and this is primitable workers. Major difference. These are bit expensive. These workers are relatively cheap. Extra VM that Google may stop at any time. It's like that you have a big project, okay? And for that project, you have some resources who are permanent. Those are non-primitable workers or primary workers. On top of that, you want to add some more resources, but you want those resources in very cheap cost. So what you will do, you will quickly hire some of the employees on contract to hire basis. Okay, those are very cheap. You just hire them and then fire them. So it's that kind of analogy. And they do not store any HDFS data. This point is very important. Like we discussed the costing aspects. Yep. They reduce the cost by 70 to 80%. It means that for permanent employee or VM, if you are paying $100, then for the primitable workers, you are paying approximately around $40 or $30, right? Both will do the same work, definitely no issue in that. Both have the same capacity, no issue in that. But these are not permanent. They can be terminated after 24 hours. Maximum they will work for 24 hours only, or within that they will get terminated at any time that you don't know, right? Then a big question arises, right? Like you may ask, if they are not trustworthy, they can terminate anytime, and the maximum amount or the maximum hours they work is only for 1 day. Then why we need this? How can we trust these primitable workers? So trust me, when we come at the end of the data proc sessions, you will come to know how printable workers are helpful. I'm not saying they are the best, right? But how these make your job easy and how they reduce your cost up to major extent. Make sense? Now here is a note. So this is a Google standard. It means that the number of primitable workers in your cluster should be less than 50% of total number of all workers. Just keep that in mind. Um, it means if you have 10 permanent workers, keep primitable workers less than 10. There shouldn't be like in your project, you have 5 permanent employees and 15 contract to hire employees. That is not recommended by Google. But at the end of the day, it all depends on your budget, your nature of what exactly you are processing, and so many factors. But Google says keep that contract employees or printable workers minimum to the non-primitable workers. Yeah. So, what should we understand in this session? What we have gone through, right? What we understood. We saw what are primary workers conceptually, not in depth. That's fine. What are secondary workers? That's fine. Not in depth. What are non-primitive workers and what are primitive workers? This is the overall idea. If you get just a high level idea conceptually, then this is more than enough at this session. So in the next session, we will be going deeper into data. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just want to explain you one more second. Yeah. Let's go through the cluster part here. I'm sorry. See, this is your master node, okay, who is kind of manager, and these are your virtual machines or worker nodes or VMs, or you can say workers, okay, right? Think that this is a master node and they are all connected, and this overall stuff is called cluster. If you remember the previous sessions, this overall stuff is called a cluster. And now suppose we have 4 VMs. Dataproc gives me the flexibility to add, right? Say I want 2 more resources or 2 more VMs to do my task, but I don't want to add them permanently. I want some cheaper resources, just a kind of contract to hire. It means what I will do, I will go for primitive workers. While creating a cluster, right, we have an option to add the primitive or non-primitive workers. When we do a quick hands-on, that time you will get come to know this. And rest all these are non-primitive or permanent employees or standard workers or primary workers. You can say this as primary, okay, and primary, okay. And there is no means hardcore rule that uh, you have to choose only this many primitive workers, but it depends on what exactly your task is all about. So let's go back to this, and we are almost at the end of this session. Like I said, this is overall idea. In the next session we will go deeper into how Dataproc actually uses these workers and what happens when a primitive worker get terminated during a job. So this question we will definitely uh, uh, elaborate this, maybe not in the next session, but with the ongoing session. At the end of Dataproc sessions, you will be coming to know that what happens if a job suddenly stop, which is done by primitive workers. How can we trust primitive workers? How about the storage of primitive workers? How about the HDFS concept of primitive workers? So all these things, definitely these are extremely important from examination point of view. The use case may be something like this. Say you want to lift and shift your on-premise Hadoop system to Google Cloud, and then you are having these many workers, these many primitive workers or non-primitive workers. So how you're gonna optimize this, right? So there are so many things. The nature of the question is something like that. Sense? All right then. So I think it's quite lengthy for this session right now. In the next session, we will just come up. We will just go one step deeper in our GCP Dataproc service. So thank you so much for watching, and just take down the notes. If you are not comfortable, just revisit the video one more time, and see you in the next session soon. That's all. Good day to all.